Hello everyone, I'm here today with the PC-12. I've gotten requests to cover the PC-12 specifically so many times now, and while it's made appearances in a lot of my content, it's never been like documented, and I've never done a full dedicated video to the PC-12. I'll be getting into some of the technical aspect of how to actually set it up with your gear, and I'll also be showing you instances on how to use it in previous setups, so like practical use examples. My buddy Pat, who goes by Stereo Image, utilizes the PC-12 in his own DAWLESS improvised techno setup, and he just uses it in such a perfect way, so that will be included in this video. You might want to use it to control the SP404 Mark II as well, or maybe the Digitact plus the SP404 Mark II at the same time. You're able to do that because it has 2 MIDI outs, it also has 2 MIDI ins, so you could very easily control multiple units at the same time. In other words, this thing is an absolute beast. I always mention this, your support is greatly appreciated. This is an independent YouTube channel, so I put everything together myself, so your support really does help. Like, subscribe, maybe drop a comment. Use the affiliate links of all of the gear mentioned in this video, that's in the description. If you do end up using those links, I make a small commission from that sale. It doesn't cost you anything extra. Now, let's get on with the PC-12. First thing we're going to take a look at is the basics on how to actually configure this thing to your gear. And just to give you a size comparison example, it is literally like the exact same size as the Octatrack. It's also like the same height. If I was to put that here, you could sort of see that. And so in other words, it's not like a tiny, MIDI controller. It's big, it's bold, and it gives you everything that you need in terms of knobs. Obviously, faders are great. It doesn't have any faders, and I think it's the MX-12. I think that's what it's called. It's another unit from FaderFox that has X amount of knobs, and it also has faders. And the MX-12 is also like a premium level MIDI controller, like all of FaderFox's gear. It's also worth mentioning that with MIDI control, there's like two parts of the setup. So there's the PC-12 in this case, and then there's the piece of gear that you're controlling. So with Electron gear, it's really easy to set up MIDI channels and like CC information. It's very straightforward. With other DAWLESS gear, it might not be quite as straightforward. So that's something that you'll have to look into depending on the instrument. It's also worth mentioning that if you're using this with Ableton, the setup is like extremely easy, and that's completely done with an Ableton. Once again, we're not going to get into that in this video, but just to let you know, it's a very simple setup. So firstly, currently we're in performance mode. If we want to get into edit mode, we just hit the two buttons together, edit mode. And from here, whatever knob or pot that I want to jump to, currently I'm on this one, I just hold the blue button and I could jump to whichever one that I want. I could also scroll here if I want, but I just find it a bit easier to use like the snap function. The only information we're going to be taking a look at in this video is obviously which pot we're using. We're going to jump over to CC. So that's another important piece of information we're going to be using, as well as the MIDI channel. To keep it super simple within the Digitone, I'm going to head over to MIDI config, channels, and I'm gonna make sure that track 1 is channel 1, track 2 is channel 2, track 3 is channel 3, and track 4 is channel 4. So in this case, I'll make this entire column channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, right? And so you could choose whatever parameters that you want on these to control on this specific channel, channel 1. And so that's what I'll set up right now. I'll go over to channel, make sure I'm on this pot, and I'll just make sure that all of these are on channel 1. And of course, I'll do the same for these columns as well. So again, we've made sure that this particular button is set to CC. And then to actually change the CC, we go over to this 6th button and we could change it here. So you might be asking, what is the CC? Like, what is CC information? And so I've pulled out the Digitone manual, and if you scroll to the back of any manual of a unit that supports this type of workflow, it will have the CC information at the back of that manual. In this case, filter frequency is CC 23. And that's actually exactly what we're set to, 23. So let's see if that works. We'll go to track 1, filter. We're gonna step out of edit mode, and we're going to twist this knob, and there we go. The filter frequency is being controlled. Again, any parameter on this unit, and on most units, I should say, is controllable via CC. And so this is where the PC-12 becomes especially useful if you have multiple pieces of gear, and instead of menu diving and, bouncing back and forth from one piece to the next, you could have everything just in one place. Hopefully that's straightforward enough for setting up these knobs. What about the buttons? How do we make use of these? In my opinion, I think it makes the most sense to use them as mute and unmute. So again, I'll go into edit mode, snap to the button 1, and we'll scroll over to channel 1, and CC is set to, in the manual it says 94. Okay, so I've been using this with Electron gear, obviously, because it's already set to 94. And now when I press this button, you can see that it's muted, unmuted for that particular track. Of course, if you want to, you could also get creative with like delay sends and reverb sends as well on the, where is it? This page, right? So that's your reverb send, that's your delay send. You could also mess around with these parameters. Anything that you could think of to enhance your music, the PC-12 is capable of doing that. Let's take a look at how to actually utilize it in a more practical setting, a more creative setting. Here's my buddy Pat.
This just gives me the ability to really play the rhythm like an instrument.
So what made you choose the FaderFox PC-12 for this particular setup? Is it the amount of control you have?
When it comes to that many potentiometers, there's not that many options.
Yeah.
And I needed a lot. And it's really like built for it, like perfectly.
Yeah.
Same form factor.
Yeah.
This is 12 channels. There's 12 rows here.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a no-brainer. What I like about this is that I can choose to map whatever control I need in here. If ever there's a control that I notice that I'm never reaching for all that much, I can just like swap it out.
Mm-hmm.
I touch everything on a set. Like I touch all of these.
Okay, so you have all of them programmed to something?
Yeah.
Every one of them?
All of them. Which might seem like a lot, but I mean, kind of like you would have on a mixing console. Like it looks like a lot of knobs, but it's a lot of the same function repeated per channel. Mm-hmm. And you might notice that I replaced some of the knobs, and that's to give me kind of like visual cues when I'm just like reaching for things, so I don't just get lost in a sea of knobs.
Right.
So
this is smart. It's a smart idea.
So the way I have it set up, most tracks will just have one column, right? So this is like my kick track. And I don't have it labeled because in the middle of a performance, first of all, there's usually not that much light. Anyway, you don't label the notes on your guitar or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So like after a while, it just has to be muscle memory that I'm moving. I'm not even thinking. I just know where to reach for things. And then so the white knobs kind of indicate to me that there's a new track. So this is track number 2. And some of the synth tracks, I need more parameters. So then there'll be an adjacent row or column.
So just on the kick, like what do you have there?
The top knob is usually tune.
Okay.
Because I use mostly the analog synth for the kick drum. And what's nice about it is I could freely tune it and it just sounds good pretty much everywhere. And that's something I'll do during sound check is I'll just do a bunch of filter sweep, or not filter sweeps. I'll just be sweeping the tuning of the kick drum, and I'll listen in the room to spots where it makes the whole room resonate like crazy, which changes from venue to venue, sound system to sound system. And I'll just take like a mental note of where those spots are on the dial. And then I can kind of like choose to back off of that. When I really want to create emphasis or go and add more energy, I can just tune the kick drum right into that spot. And make the whole room shake. And then after that, I have the delay.
Okay, what you're controlling there. Okay, cool.
Which I actually don't use that much.
On a kick, yeah.
I mean, a lot of people do that in techno to have that galloping rumble sound. And I have another technique I use instead that ends up being cleaner. And there's only one delay. I like to use it for the synths. And then after that, I have distortion. Yeah, drive. And this is amazing because you can go from like a good basic kick drum to something that's really high energy and intense.
Right.
And it changes the whole intensity of the whole song just with this one knob. So it's kind of like a dial in the energy level knob. I use that a lot. And then after that, I have a high pass filter. So this is how I do kind of like, you know, breaking down a section and then dropping it in. And then I have the amp decay. If I want a shorter thing, or if I just want it to take up all of the whole bottom end, you know?
So this is the kick. You said this is synths. This is whatever else. Like, out of all of these, which instrument do you find yourself tweaking with the most during your set?
All of it.
Okay.
All of it constantly.
The PC-12 is also excellent at controlling an effects unit like the SB404 Mark II. And as I already mentioned, it can easily control multiple units with power to spare. Before getting into that setup though, let's talk about today's sponsor, DistroKid. If you're an independent artist or producer looking for a way to officially release your music to all major streaming platforms, you probably already know by now that DistroKid is just the best option to go with for someone like yourself and me. And here's a few reasons why they're great. In terms of what's new, they recently released a smartphone app, which makes checking your important DistroKid stats easy and accessible. The app is now available on Android through the Play Store. Essentially everything that you've been able to do on the DistroKid desktop app, you're now able to do through your smartphone. In fact, here's a list of key features that the app offers you. You might want to pause it now if you want to check them out. In today's day and age, we all know how many hats we have to wear as artists and producers. It can just be a lot, so write the music, produce the music. Then you've got to create content to promote it a few weeks before it's released. Then you've got to continue creating content after it's been released to promote it. It's a lot, and I'm not saying that DistroKid does all of this work for you, but they do make it a lot easier for us with the free promotional tools that they offer. The one I use most is Hyperfollow. It's essentially a free landing page or link tree. It's super clean. You could link maybe your latest video, your latest single, other important links you'd like to lead people to. I also use promo cards whenever I release a single. Just select the single that you would like to promote and it'll auto-generate a few different options for you to choose from. Go with DistroKid. It's just over $20 a year to release unlimited music to all major streaming platforms. You keep 100% of your streaming royalties. So many other tools that they offer for someone who's independent. They're made for us. And there is a discount linked in the description of this video if you would like to join. In this case, all of these 4 rows here, these are all SB404 effects. These top rows up here are actually controlling the Digitact, so we're not going to touch those. So essentially, if you route your MIDI controller to channel 1, so these 3 knobs, these are channel 1. This is CC 16, 17, and 18. So these are controlling all of the effects on page 1. A lot of the effects on the MK2 actually have 2 pages, so in this case, we're on bus 1, and we're currently using, Isolator. And from there, I'm able to, control from here. I'm not sure if Isolator has a second page. It does not. So in that case, it's these 3 controls. That's all you need. It would be the same thing for each bus. So bus 1, as I mentioned, is channel 1. Bus 2 is for channel 2. So I'm going to go over here, right? So bus 2 here, that's for filter and drive. Let's see. Does it have a second page? It does. So for page 2, you'd have to assign different CCs. I think it's 80, what is it? It's 80, 81, and 82 for page 2. So 80, 81, 82. I'm getting pretty specific here, but that's what it is. But to be honest, in my experience, page 2 oftentimes isn't something that you really want or need to control. So I actually haven't touched page 2. I've just done page 1 controls, so 3 for each of them. And whatever effects is assigned, your MIDI controller is just going to latch on to that. So the last thing that you assigned. Let's say DJ effects looper. Right, so whatever's there, it's going to control it. Oh God.